What's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres with Scoop Duck on 3, coming to you live on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2025. We're on the heels, in the midst of a week 2 matchup for Oregon as they prepare to welcome the Oklahoma State Cowboys to Watson Stadium for a Saturday afternoon matchup, 12:30 kick over there in Eugene. If you are tuning in remotely and can't make it to the game, I believe that one is going to be broadcast on CBS. But we're rocking another live stream, trying to get like one of these to you guys a week because it's fun to interact with you guys and just kind of a different format here. So if you're tuned in here on the Scoop Duck on 3 YouTube channel or on my X account, we greatly appreciate you rocking with us, and feel free to drop into the live chat, leave us a comment how you're feeling about this Oregon team, and maybe throw some questions our way. But with all that being said, I'm not rolling solo. I am joined by a good friend in Reid Tingley of the Quacked Out Podcast. Reid, man, how you doing? Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Football's back. No complaints there. It's awesome to connect with you again. You know, we worked together a bit in a past life, so it's fun to get a chance to talk Ducks. And excited, you know, based on where the program is at since we last connected. I mean, it's been a great trajectory.
Yeah, the Ducks are absolutely killing it, and we got a lot of fun stuff to get into. For you guys, if you're not familiar with Reid, I mean, he's doing a lot of great stuff over on his side of things with the Quacked Out podcast, and was one of my first interns when I was over at Sports Illustrated Ducks Digest. So I guess you could say we go way back, but that's why I was really excited to bring it on, man, and just get some of your perspective here, because I feel like you have some pretty awesome memes or just funny takes on Twitter sometimes. And you know your ball, so it's going to be great to dive into the Ducks here.
Yeah, I'm super excited as well. I love to just have some fun on Twitter these days and keep up with the podcast. Like you said, I have a few special projects, like my pin tweet, especially I'll plug, is kind of a history of Oregon recruiting. I went deep, like 3 hours, breaking down kind of the rise of that side of the program. So I'm super proud of that. Put together some graphs sometimes when I have free time and stuff like that.
Nice, man. Nice. Yeah, I think that was the first thing that we were kind of working on together, was you were helping out with some of my recruiting coverage over there. So maybe just on that note, we can have a quick update here off the top, Reid. I don't know if you saw it, but it's a quick little update. 5-star Oregon edge commit Anthony Tank Jones is going to be making his way back to Eugene this weekend for another Oregon visit, the first for him since he committed to the Ducks in late July. And Jones was actually just in Florida to watch Miami take on Notre Dame in their first game of the year. So this is a big one to get Jones back on campus, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the signature for Lanning really in recruiting has just been his ability to always find that pivot to the next guy. You know, a guy like Tank Jones, who not a lot of people, at least on surface level, thought was heading to Oregon for a while. You know, Richard Wesley was the hot name at edge, and then to be able to all of a sudden in the final weeks, and I know Scoop Duck per usual kind of had it first with the rumblings there, but you see Oregon pick up steam, and then it goes, oh wow, this board at edge is deeper than we thought. And obviously getting Tank back on campus and a chance to kind of reaffirm that commitment is a huge move.
It's definitely big, and Rivals' Steve Wiltfong had the interview that I kind of pieced together another story over on Scoop Duck for people to check out. But just some good stuff over there as far as where Anthony Jones is at with his Oregon commitment now that he just took that trip to Miami, and he's going to continue to be pursued by the likes of Alabama, Auburn, and Texas A&M. So just a quick little recruiting note there to hit on the top here and to get us going here on a Wednesday afternoon. Let's hop into this Oklahoma State matchup a little bit and just talking more about the team side of things. We got our first comment of the day here from our guy Andrew, who I swear is here in every live stream. Definitely appreciate the continue to support Andrew. Andrew says, quote, "I rarely wish for the Ducks to beat a team into the ground that isn't Washington or USC, but I would love to see a relentless whooping on Gundy this weekend. Let him cry poverty for another week." Of course, Reid, this stems from Gundy's comments about, how much Oregon is spending on their roster and on their program. And then Lanning was asked about it and kind of said something to the tune of, we invest to win. and while other programs, save to make an excuse for why they don't spend, kind of being the paraphrase there. So what did you make of all that drama? Because it's just been lighting up a storm on social media.
I just think Lanning is so savvy in these moments with the way that he chooses to communicate and kind of pick the time to kind of make a point and then step back. I mean, it feels like in the lead up to this game, it reminds me of the Colorado game, when Dion first came, and kind of the personal edge to it. But at the same time, I think that this Oklahoma State team is much more demoralized than that Colorado team was going into it. I don't know if they really have the firepower to compete in this game to begin with. So it seems like a bad recipe for them. I mean, on Gundy's side, I feel like he's trying to make a plea to his boosters. He's kind of trying to use Oregon as an example for the spending that he'd like to replicate in his own program. But I just thought it was a clumsy point to make for him, and an unforced error when you're already playing a top 5 team in the country at their house. I mean, I don't think
down your starting quarterback too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a good recipe for them.
Yeah, so it was definitely fun to see kind of all that come together. And I think you make a great point just about how Lanning is and how he's kind of evolved, I guess, in front of the media since he's been at Oregon, because he's very much, I think, that journalism 101 kind of guy. That was one of the first things I learned in school was if you ask a yes or no question, you are going to get a yes or no answer. And that is Lanning to a T. But I feel like when he wants to talk about something and you tee it up for him in the right way, he'll kind of run with it. So I guess it is a little bit more bulletin board material, if you will. The comment here from Frank Carrillo tuning in, Mike Gundy giving us bulletin board material. Why LOL? I think that it's just part of the sport, I mean, Mike Gundy's already kind of made a name for himself with his infamous rumblings in the press conference scene. So I guess maybe it's a little bit par for the course, but we'll definitely talk a little bit more about this Oklahoma State game as we get into the show here, Reid. But I want to talk a little bit about kind of the main focus for this show, and you can see it there on the ticker and on YouTube if you guys are watching us. Oregon football standard is starting to set in. I think that this is just a testament to where the Ducks are kind of at as a program. Lanning was talking to the media earlier on today, and I got to give credit to Matt Prem for asking this question over at Duck Territory. Was just kind of asking about just this mentality or this willingness from the younger players on Oregon's roster. I think with an emphasis on the true freshmen, about why they're showing up early and this willingness to stay late. I'm gonna read the full quote real quick, Reid, and then you and me will kind of just dissect it. Lanning saying here, I just think the standard's starting to set in here. There's good examples of leaders that have been here and know what it looks like. And then there's guys that are really hungry. You're looking for ambitious guys, but that also understand that if I don't do what's necessary, I don't deserve that role. And I think they realize you got to pay rent every single day. We're always looking for that when we're looking for players, for guys that are ambitious. They love ball. They want to be great. They're infatuated with being great. They see growth moments, and we have a lot of guys on our team like that right now. So what do you kind of think of, Reid, when you hear that from Lanning, I guess, in the bigger picture of where Oregon's at as a program?
Yeah, the first thing I'd go to is depth, I think. We've had some stars come through Oregon. Oregon has a streak now of first-round pick selections in the last, 5 or 6 drafts. The top-end talent has been there, but there's no question to me that this is the deepest roster that Oregon's ever had, and you certainly saw that on display versus Montana State. Just in terms of how the snaps were kind of dispersed in that first game, and you see, especially at that corner room, having it be, Naeem Offord, Ife Obadegwu, and Brandon Finney leading the way there, speaks to how much these young guys are kind of bought in and ready to go from day one, ready to kind of treat college as a professional environment, because that's really the standard for top college programs now. It is a semi-pro environment, and obviously, NIL factors into that as well. But looking across the board, it's just the depth. I think people have said this is the most talented roster of all time. And I think that the more specific thing for Oregon is it's the deepest roster. We've had 1 through 10s that have been really good. Look at what Oregon just put in the draft last year. but I think that 20 through 85th guy on the roster, no comparison with any past time for Oregon compared to how talented it is right now.
And there's a very key difference, I feel like, Reid, between those two words, talent and depth. Because you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not in the playbook, if you're not grasping the concepts, you're not going to get put on the field. And I think there's no better example of that right now at this part of the season than Brandon Finney, because he's a true freshman, gets the nod as one of the starting corners on this team, and he was a quote unquote late arrival. So for him to be out there as one of the best corners on the team already just is a huge testament to his ability to grasp the playbook and his work ethic. And that's basically what Lanning said when he was asked about him earlier on today. And Aaron Flowers, another fellow defensive back, also talked about being one of those guys that is early in the building, and then he's one of the last ones to leave, and his grasp of the defense, because that's a huge part of the equation here. So I think that we're seeing just all the rotations kind of suggest that there's some serious depth on this team, but I don't know if I don't think we've had, that first true test really, right? I think that Montana State is one of the better teams, one of the best teams in the FCS ranks, but even this week, I think might give us a little bit more of a taste of where Oregon's actually at, specifically in the secondary, going against a team that likes to push the ball down the field like the Cowboys.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you look forward to kind of my early thoughts on that Oklahoma State matchup, I think that learning about Oregon's secondary and learning about Oregon's pass protection are probably the two biggest things that stand out. I don't expect it to be a competitive game, but I think that those two areas are something that Oklahoma State's going to be willing to test, with their own deep passing game and their own pass rush. So at least in that segment of the game, we should be able to learn something about Oregon.
Yeah, I think that'll give us a better look at the defensive front as well, because Montana State was running the ball so much. There weren't a lot of like drop back pass plays that developed and gave Oregon the time that they might need to get to the quarterback. And one of it was already on Scoop Duck, so I feel like I can talk about it now. Like one of my my surprise storyline that I wrote about for our subscribers this week was that Oregon has more than 10 TFLs. I think it was more than 10 TFLs total. So obviously that combines like run stops and sacks. And I think that Oregon only got 3 sacks and 7 tackles for loss last week against the Bobcats. And true freshman Nasir Wyatt had one of those sacks, mind you. Just absolutely crazy motor and twitch on that guy. So I think that the defensive front is going to be really exciting to watch. And I'm excited about the growth of Tatum Tuioti, Reid. I think that he's one of the guys that needs to be talked about more on this Oregon defense, because he may not stuff the stat sheet like Mateo did last year, but that dude is like the Mr. Consistent, I feel like, of that front.
Yeah, I completely agree there. I think him, and then you add in Blake Purchase, and kind of after, for lack of a better word, disappearing from the kind of participation reports during last season, he's had a strong return in that game 1, and he was highlighted as well in kind of that fall camp documentary that Oregon puts out. That trio of edge pieces in that same class are a foundation of this defensive line. And then, of course, you have the anchor inside with Amari Washington that is just shooting up draft boards across the country right now.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Amari a little bit, because he's already kind of entrenched himself as one of the more exciting defenders on this year's team. And I mean, I was talking to Ted LaRue, who is one of our contributors over at Scoop Duck, and he's in the Duck podcasting scene as well. And he had a really cool tweet that I put up on yesterday's show that just kind of showcased how quickly Amari Washington is getting off the ball. And you're combining that with his elite athleticism that put him on the Bruce Feldman's freak list, and technique that you would think, Reid, is only going to get better with time. And man, I think it's I don't want to overreact to just one game, right? And like that's such an easy tendency to fall into as college football fans, right? Or even people in the media. But like if you're looking for someone that's gonna kind of take on that Derek Harmon type of role, I mean, it feels like Oregon is just saying, okay, out with the old, in with the new, and reloading on this year's defense.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And I think especially having a guy like that, I mean, we saw the value of Derek Harmon last year. I think in the Big Ten play, when you're playing especially those kind of middle of the road conference opponents, having an interior defensive line game wrecker like that makes those games a lot more comfortable because you know that a lot of Big Ten teams are built to have that be kind of their default mode to advance the ball. And when you take away the thing that they want to do most by having someone as disruptive as Amari Washington inside, you can kind of make them play into your hands and make it a lot easier as the team with the talent advantage.
It certainly felt like Amari was kind of the new guy that was really showcased or felt you felt his presence watching that week 1 game against the Bobcats. But we saw a little bit from Aiden Breland. I think he had a pass deflection. Tion Gray spoke with the media for the first time today after I think starting next to Amari Washington along the interior of that line. So, and then Ashton Porter was another guy that got some more run out there. So that Elijah Rushing, we're going to see more of him throughout the year, I would think. So there's a lot of really exciting pieces that I think we're going to see from this Oregon team as we look into week 2 and week 3, and then once conference play gets here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the shout out for Tion Gray and Terrence Green as well. Like both of those guys clearly demonstrating that they're above that line, above the standard for Oregon, and playing kind of co-starting roles with Bear Alexander as a true 4-man rotation of guys who Oregon feels really comfortable with on the interior of their defensive line. That's such a luxury compared to where most of the rest of the country is at with that position specifically.
And Oregon's really trying to build out that quality 2 deep, and this might be the year that we see them get the closest that they've ever been to having that elite 2 deep, where there's no drop off, but they have maybe the most above the line players that we've seen in the Dan Lanning era, and we'll talk a lot more about those above the line players on the offensive side of the ball after this right here. Duck fans, are you heading to an Oregon game this season? If you are, the Oakway Lifestyle Center at the corner of Oakway and Coburg is the destination for Duck fans. Whatever you're looking for, they've got it all. Get a bite to eat at Sun River Brewing or PF Chang's. Check out shops like Lululemon or Nordstrom Rack. Need a place to stay? Book your lodging at the Hyatt Place at Oakway Center and visit their rooftop bar. The Oakway Lifestyle Center is walking distance from Autzen Stadium, has something for everybody, and is a great post-game place to celebrate another Duck victory. Max Torres of Scoop Duck on 3, joined on the show by Reid Tingley of the Quacked Out Podcast. Glad to have you guys along, and thanks so much for tuning in to another episode. Let's hop on over to the offensive side of the ball a little bit here, Reid, and talk about some of what we've been seeing, some of what we've been hearing about that side of the ball. Obviously, the Dante Moore era is underway, and we'll get a little bit of a better test, I think, against the Oklahoma State defense, and just maybe be tested by some of those guys on the defensive front that are going to be going against the Oregon offensive line. I was really impressed by Dante in his opening start. I mean, I think he kind of just did what he had to do. But I was like, I think you got to analyze some of those smaller things, like that 2-minute drill type drive that they had right before halftime, where they got in the end zone and capped off that drive with a touchdown pass to Malik Benson. And then that run near the goal line, I want to say it was on 3rd and goal, where he ran out of bounds instead of trying to force it. Like those are the things that you want to see from a younger quarterback, because it's a common trait for guys to kind of force things. But I don't think you could have asked for the Dante Moore era to get off to a better start than what we saw.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, the biggest thing was just the lack of mistakes. I think it laid a really solid foundation for him to kind of build on throughout the year and add more pieces to his game. The big highlight throws weren't necessarily there in the opener, but I think that we know he has those clubs in his bag. Like we've seen that throughout his career. I don't doubt the arm talent. I think that just avoiding the mistakes, that really derailed some of those games at UCLA with him as a freshman is the biggest thing. And if he can do that, then we'll see what he can add to his game come, December with a potential playoff run. And maybe he can hit a ceiling that can take you over the top. But right now it's about kind of building up that floor to me and creating a solid foundation for him.
It's definitely a solid foundation there. And I think The other thing that is a little bit hard to evaluate or even like put like a big quantity on, or qualify might be the better word, is the vision of a quarterback. Like until you see the game, like I talked to some folks out there in Eugene, and like they're just telling me about some of these throws that he's making in practice, and they're like, how did you even see that guy there? Like that's insane. And like that just speaks to his ability to process what's coming at him, his ability to read the defense, to know where guys are going to be and when. It speaks to the anticipation behind his throws. I mean, there's just so many boxes that I think Dante Moore is already checking, and you can see why a guy like a Yogi Roth was like talking about why he thinks that Dante could be one of the best quarterbacks in the conference. And I think he also said, like, even nationally, like you see what Dante Moore did, and you compare that to what Will Stein did for Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel the past couple of years. And I mean, this offense, I think, is just loaded with talent and more than capable of being one of the most explosive and one of the most efficient offenses we're going to see in college football this year.
Right, absolutely. And you also at the same time have to compare it to some of the stuff we saw across the nation this past week. I mean, Texas and Ohio State was the marquee matchup, and it wasn't a game.
Gross. It was a
Yeah,
gross game.
it wasn't a game that showcased top level quarterback play, despite what those guys' rankings might have said. And we'll see how they improve throughout the year, but there isn't a obvious guy that has that mantle of best quarterback in the country right now. There's no sure thing. And I think with Dante's talent, he's a hat in the ring to be that. And at the end of the season, if you feel like you have the best quarterback, you're going to have a shot with a roster like Oregon's to do something pretty special. We'll see. We'll see if Dante can get there himself. But I think you have to look in the context of a sport that doesn't have, a Joe Burrow this year leading a team so far that we see. It doesn't have a Marcus Mariota right now. So maybe Dante can grow into something like that. Maybe he can get back to New York like Bo Nix and Dylan Gabriel did, or maybe not. But certainly there's a chance right now, and that's all you can hope for, I think, as an Oregon fan leaving week one.
I like that you mentioned the Texas and Ohio State game, and just how there isn't really that returning bona fide star at quarterback at like really any of these top programs. I mean, maybe the best case you could probably say is what, Norris Sellers at South Carolina, or maybe Lagway just got here. I don't even know if you can say that for him over there at Florida. Maybe you say Carson Beck because he's played a lot of football at Miami. But like the sport just feels so wide open this year, Reid, which is so fun, and it's going to make it even more exciting to watch. I mean, what in the world is going on at Alabama right now? Miami had that huge win last minute over Notre Dame, when every Oregon fan just knew or thought that Mario Cristobal was going to give that thing away with some of his clock management stuff. But that's, I think, what really makes the sport so fun, and feels like it's there for the taking. You need a top quarterback more often than not to get the job done. And it feels like the early signals show us or tell us that Oregon has that. I know that there's a couple of different groups that you're really excited about, Reid, on this offense, just from some of our convos behind the scenes. So I'm just going to tee this one up to you. Where do you kind of want to go next?
Yeah, let's look at the receivers, I think is a good place to start, and kind of who's separating in that group. The buzz all camp long was around DeCorian Moore as a potential lead wide receiver. And despite not filling up the stat sheet in terms of catches on Saturday, what he showed in the blocking game, the snaps that he amassed, and just kind of the dynamic presence that he held, even without the ball, I think proved why he was getting so much buzz early in camp. But it was interesting to see kind of the names that surrounded him. And you talk about the standard. I'm curious as we get deeper into the season with Oregon, and we see what they choose to do come that road trip to Penn State. How do they pare down a room like wide receiver? Who ends up being above that line? I know Lanning had an interesting quote today around Cooper Perry at the press conference, and was complimentary of him not looking like a normal freshman receiver. DeCorian Moore obviously fits into that, and a number of other young guys. But at the same time, you have Malik Benson and Gary Bryant late in their careers capturing significant roles through one game. So we'll see kind of how that all shakes out. I'm really curious to see what kind of weapons will be put out there for Dante to use throughout this year.
Decory Moore was without a doubt the guy that I think everyone was the most excited to see heading into Saturday's game. And like, maybe there weren't like a lot of plays where you're just like, oh my God, like how did he catch that kind of a deal? But like the what we saw from him on the end arounds was great. I think that the blocks were great because I know that it was either Lanning or Ross Douglas had said something to the effect of like how you operate without the ball, or even maybe just how you block for your teammates, like just shows, the love that you have for them. And I think just like your willingness to kind of put it all on the line for your teammates. So I think Decory Moore checked that box in the biggest way, even if he was blocking the wrong guy. I also think kind of one of the unsung heroes of that room didn't even impact the offense necessarily, but Jeremiah McClellan showing up on special teams. Like, I think that just shows that the depth that they have, and like you need guys that are going to show up and make plays regardless of where you put them. Like whether it's on special teams blocking a punt, or whether it's another starter like Noah Whittington, making house calls last year to save Oregon from that loss against Boise State. I think that talks to you about some of the depth that the Ducks have this year. So I think there's so much talent in that receiver room. I think moving forward, I'm going to be the most interested to see how Kyler Casper can try to solidify himself a little bit more. He only had one catch on the day on a ball that was a little bit underthrown, I think, from Austin Novosad. But you saw him out there, which was good. I thought Malik Benson looked great. Someone that maybe Duck fans were a little bit nervous about, a little touch and go with because of, I think he had a drop or two in that spring game, but he showed up in the games, which is all that matters. And I think this room is going to be tested a little bit even more following, the Stewart injury and the Dickey suspension, because Dylan Gresham was in a neck brace over on the sideline and sounds like he's going to be missing some time. So this receiver room is pretty crunched for depth right now, but we'll see if these guys can answer the call.
Yeah, and I think especially with a guy like Malik Benson, when you talk about the Evan Stewart injury and then the unfortunate news with Gresham, having a potential deep threat is the factor that Malik Benson really provides to this receiver room. And you hope that he can kind of realize that potential this year, because without him, you don't have an option in that archetype in the same way, probably. So I think that I would bet on him having a big role this year. And certainly he ended up leading this receiver core in snaps through game one as well with 29. So if that was any indication, it looks like he is slotted to have a significant role in this rotation.
There's a couple of other guys on this offense, Reid, that seem like they're going to be having a pretty big role, maybe a bigger role than we were expecting. Let's hit on the RBs, because that room is like stupidly deep. And we saw a pair of Oregon's true freshmen and De'Aaron Hill Jr. and Jordan Davison really just kind of announced their presence. Davison obviously made some pretty big statements with his 3 touchdown runs. It seems like he has a great shot, great case to be made for the team's short yardage back or the third down back, goal line back, what have you. I'm not super surprised. We've been reporting on that all throughout fall camp over on Scoop Duck. And then De'Aaron Hill Jr., kind of a little bit more of in that Noah Whittington mold. But dude, that guy's just got some juice in his legs. And like, we got a crazy cool picture. I want to see if I can maybe pull it up maybe while you're talking, but of De'Aaron Hill stiff arming a Montana State defender. And like his hand is like literally inside the guy's face mask. Maybe not legal, but what a moment for him. I think those two guys are going to be super special. Jalen Lamar got in the end zone. Noah Whittington had some plays as well. And I know a lot of people are talking about Mekhi Hughes and maybe how he falls here in the pecking order as we look ahead to week 2 against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, exactly. I love the shout out to Jordan Davison. I mean, you were just talking about Nazir Wyatt on the defensive side. How about Davison as well? The modern day boys showing up in Eugene early on. Yeah, the running back room is really interesting. I think that the lack of touches for Mekhi Hughes is one of the biggest storylines that jumped out to everyone from game one. He was such a high profile transfer. And I'm interested to see what kind of comes from it. He did end up at second in snaps in the game behind Noah Whittington. he had 12, but it was so dispersed that he didn't really gain much separation over those young guys around him. And he didn't get more touches than them either. Seems like leaving week one, I would say Noah Whittington is now the RB1 for Oregon. I feel like that has kind of been solidified by the breakdown and snaps that we saw in game one. I'm curious if Mekhi Hughes will be able to kind of carve out a role ahead of those young guys. And if it was more situational that kind of led to the Davison carries by the goal line. But we'll see. You know, we've seen Oregon lead with a freshman running back in a goal line setting before in this staff with Jordan James a couple of years ago. So I'll be excited if that's Davison's type of role. And it seems like there's not a bad option here. But again, similar to the receiver room, you're going to have to pare this down, you know, by the time you're traveling to Happy Valley. You can't play 7 running backs in that game, probably.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's one of those positions that you have a lot of mouths to feed, and I don't think Oregon's ever going to be hurting for running back talent. And the week one game was just the latest indication of that. If you're watching here on the live stream, I got the picture of Deer Hill just absolutely grown manning this this Montana State defender. But I'm curious to see how they do pare that down, because I, like you, thought that Mekhi Hughes was going to play a big role. And it's early in the season. Maybe he does end up playing a big role later on down the line. But I feel like at the end of the day, like whether you're experienced or not, or whether you're a high profile recruit or a high profile transfer, the cream rises to the top. The best guy is going to get on the field. And whether that's Mekhi Hughes or someone else in this room, I think you feel good about Rashad Samples and what he's been able to do at the position since he's gotten to Oregon. And they're going to field someone who is really, really good. So I think I'm just really excited about this running back room. I'm excited about like almost every position group on this team. I mean, how can you not be? I love what we saw from the offensive line too. We got to give them a shout out, because this offense goes nowhere without the guys up front. Emmanuel Pregnon got a little dinged up, but sounds like he's going to be back for Oklahoma State this week. Dave Iuli slid over from right guard to left guard, and then Matt Bedford came in to help out at right guard as well. So the depth there is going to be tested a little bit. Sounds like Kavika Rogers is questionable, we could say, maybe for this next game. Sounds like he messed up his ankle a little bit, but I really liked how the offensive line kind of just tackled that challenge head on, and really you didn't see them miss a beat.
Yeah, it was certainly a better performance than how Oregon led off last season versus Idaho. I know that's been a common comparison to make, but this offensive line is so crucial to me. Going in the preseason, I think it is the most important position group to determine what Oregon's ceiling can be, maybe even more so than quarterback, in my opinion. And it seems like the kind of common theory around this offensive line so far has been it could improve from last year on the interior. It could maybe even improve from last year at right tackle. But the big question is, how will Isaiah World step into the role of Josh Connerly, a first round pick departing from last year? That's going to tell us a lot about where this Oregon team can go. And I think that we might have to wait a few weeks for that answer, coming when Oregon eventually plays Penn State. We'll learn a lot about this offensive line and how they hold up. I think will be a big indicator in how that game ultimately goes.
Yeah, because you know that Penn State is one of those teams that is just kind of known for putting out some really good defensive linemen. Obviously, Abdul Carter doing his thing, getting to the NFL, and then Micah Parsons just got traded to Green Bay, and like the bombshell move of the NFL offseason, it felt like. So I can't wait for that Penn State game. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a couple of questions here. Maybe we hit on these live questions, Reid, and then we ride off into the sunset here on a Wednesday. But again, appreciate you guys being here. Love doing these live streams. Reid's the man. You gotta tap in with him if you're not already. This one comes from Squanchy. Heck of a name, interesting picture, but let's say a little cat there. I'm a cat guy, so I rock with it. Squanchy says, do you guys think we will see College Game Day at Autzen this season? I mean, I want to say yes, just because it's Oregon, and you would think that College Game Day would want to showcase it. Like they just do. I'm assuming they just do incredible numbers when they're at Oregon. There's not that many like big time home matchups this year. at least as of right now on paper, Reid. I mean, obviously you would think maybe that USC game in late November before the Thanksgiving holiday is a good candidate for game day to be there. I think that Indiana game in early to mid October, I think it's October 11th, that could be a good game. Heck, Wisconsin gave Oregon all they could handle last year over there in Madison. So there's candidates for the games, but like I don't think you have you like your Ohio State game last year that's just like, oh, like how can they not come to that game?
Yeah, I agree with that. Looking just briefly at the schedule, I mean, I think the USC game probably is the biggest candidate, which you touched on. And it's interesting because if you really want to get into the weeds of game day and compare it to the other matchups that week, it does come right before rivalry week. So you know that a lot of SEC teams will be playing their cupcakes that week. Some other teams will have maybe some softer matchups leading into their rivalry weeks. So I think that's probably the biggest candidate. The other game, I guess the Indiana game, maybe if Indiana rolls in undefeated to that and Oregon finds a way to win against Penn State, you probably have a decent chance of getting game day for that one. If both those teams are undefeated, but that's a pretty big if, I would say at this point. Outside of that, I don't know that there's another game on this schedule that really could warrant a game day appearance.
Got another question here from Tony. And Tony asks, will this be a mirrored game of Montana State? So kind of saying, do we expect to see a similar result? I don't know if you've rolled out any predictions for this game, Reid, or if you kind of have a ballpark number, but I wrote on Scoop Duck that I think this one's going to be 42-17. I could see Oregon blowing this one open a little bit more. But I went pretty conservative, as the readers know, in my week one prediction. So now that I've seen a little bit of what Oregon has in store, I feel better going with something a little bit more, out of hand, I guess.
Yeah, I'm probably in a similar range there. I think Oregon will probably be in the 40s. I said 45-13, so kind of right there with you. I don't expect it to be close, though. I mean, you can have a game like Washington had last weekend where you're tied in the third quarter and pull away late to make the score look pretty. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think Oregon's going to control it throughout.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think Oregon will control it, and you're not really going to see much of a drop off from last week. But I think that it should be another fun game to watch nonetheless. I mean, it's a college football Saturday, so how can you not be excited for this one? Last question for us on today's episode also comes from Tony. A little bit more of an overarching one here. I'm going to let you run with this one first, Reid. What should we be looking for in this game?
Yeah, I said it a little bit earlier as well, but two big things for me are how the deep passing coverage holds up, especially those young corners. I think they'll be tested a little bit, and it should be fun to see them. And then an early preview for the pass protection for Oregon. Oklahoma State had some success in week one rushing the passer. I think that their defensive front is one of the more talented parts of their team. So those two spots for Oregon, I think, are the biggest places to watch.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good focus for a Duck fan if you're watching this game. I think you just want to see more out of some of those younger positions. For me, I think linebacker would probably be a good one because it seems like that's a group that we're still looking to learn a little bit more about, with Bryce Betcher being your returner. We saw a lot of Jerry Mixon out there on Saturday, and maybe this will be the weekend that we see a little bit more of someone like a Braden Platt or a Dylan Williams. I know that Lanning talked about one of them earlier on today. I can't remember which one, but one of them was a little bit banged up, I think. And then, of course, you have Devin Jackson, who's kind of your experienced guy, really like traitsy kind of guy, right? Like a freak athlete. But is this going to be a year where we kind of see him able to put it together, take one more step towards being a complete backer? Those are kind of some of the things that I'm excited about for this year's group. But before we get you out of here, Reid, can you just tell us a little bit more about kind of what you have going on right now in the Duck space or in the sports media space? Anything you wanted to plug out there?
Yeah, best place to find me is on Twitter at Pac10Reid, or X, I guess now they call it. There, and then our podcast Quacked Out with my co-host James. That's at Ducks Pod. We were able to grab that a while ago. Been doing that since 2020. So we've been in the Oregon podcast space for a while, and it's been really fun to see all the other ones pop up as well. And I love kind of all these different perspectives that we get now on the Ducks. So it's really cool. But yeah, come find me on Twitter or X, interact with me, say what's up, and always excited to talk some Ducks.
100%. Well, you guys know where you can find Reid now, so you can stay up to date with all of his work and what's going on over there. A lot of really cool voices in this space, so I'm just grateful that we got a little bit of Reid's time to come on and share what he's got going on. Before I tell you about where you can find me, you can find me on Scoop Duck, of course. Take advantage of our special offer to join the Oregon football community over at Scoop Duck. You can join today for just $1, gets you started, and you'll get a complimentary year of access to The Athletic included with your subscription. If you want to find more of me, you can follow me anywhere at Torres Sports. Subscribe to the Scoop Duck on 3 YouTube channel. We're trying to build our community here and been a little bit more active lately now that football season's back. And then share the show, share the Ducks Dish podcast with your friends, with your family, and with another Duck fan. A big thank you to Reid, and a big thank you to you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.